Welcome back to the Endgame community. Thanks for joining us again, as always. And if you are a new viewer, welcome in. We're here to help you win at fantasy football for the 2021 season. And we're going to talk about running backs, everyone's favorite topic. This time, what about some rookie running backs and how they're going to fare against their veteran competition? It is not very clear who's going to be the lead guy in some of these timeshares. So let's get started with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Chris, it was surprising they even took a running back, much less in the first round. So what do we make of Travis Etienne? Because it's not obvious that he's going to just jump in and be the guy. James Robinson had a pretty solid rookie season himself.
Yeah, I know, it's been going around. He's running routes, and Urban Meyer keeps talking about, Etienne's going to basically be a running back who plays wide receiver. But I just can't. I can't believe that the Jaguars used their second first-round pick, the number 2 pick in the draft, not the number 2 overall pick, but their second pick in the draft, on a running back to have him just be a third down receiving back. Like, if that is the case, then that pick there's no justification for that pick whatsoever. I still think it's going to be more of like maybe a 60-40, 65-35 type of split between Etienne and James Robinson, with Etienne being on the 60 to 65% side. So, it obviously was a big blow to James Robinson's fantasy value, but it wasn't great for Etienne's either because, 60, 65%, I mean, that's okay, but that's not really what we were hoping for with him, right? We were hoping he would land somewhere where he'd be more like a 75, 80% kind of touch guy. But, to me, Etienne, I think, will be the one to come out of this backfield with the bulk of the touches, although I do think James Robinson, isn't going to go away. So, yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling at this point.
Yeah, this is the thing with Jacksonville is, I get that they would get another running back in the draft because they didn't have a lot of depth, which is why an undrafted free agent like James Robinson became the workhorse back last year. That was a different situation completely. That was a team that obviously wound up with the worst record in the league, didn't have anything else going on offensively, really, which is why they selected Trevor Lawrence at quarterback. But still, the running back was not a pressing need. To see him take a first-round pick on a running back, it's disappointing because, number one, it kills James Robinson's value, at least to some degree, and it kind of kills Etienne's too. So between the two, you're right, it's going to be at least some sort of committee. Now, it's not going to be 50-50. I do agree Etienne's going to be the guy who gets most touches just because we know he's the pass-catching back even before he became a glorified receiver in minicamp. So I think Etienne has to be the one that you draft first if you're going to draft between the two. I don't think Robinson is undraftable like some people were reacting immediately after the draft, but Etienne is he's not going to be as valuable as he could have been had he gone somewhere else. So speaking of undesirable landing spots, Javonte Williams, a lot of people thought could ascend to the number 2, maybe even the number 1 spot in terms of rookie running back rankings, depending on where he landed. So of course, he went to a place that already had a veteran running back in place and is not going to be good for his value, at least right away. So with Denver, you got Melvin Gordon and you have Javonte Williams. In our mocks that we do this 3 times a week, guys. If you want to get in on that, you check the link in the description below. But in our mocks, they go pretty close together, usually in terms of ADP. So who do you prefer?
I prefer whichever one drops the farthest. I know that's the easy way out, but it's true. Like, if Melvin Gordon drops in the draft, I'll take him. If Javonte drops in the draft, I'll take him. I feel like this is going to be kind of like what we saw with Cam Akers or J.K. Dobbins last year, where, guys like Malcolm Brown, Darrell Henderson, or Mark Ingram there in Baltimore, start the season as a starter, but as the season goes on, as the season wears on, they start to lean on the rookie more and more. And that's what I think we're going to see with Gordon and Williams. I think we're going to see Gordon, do a lot of the heavy lifting early in the year, but as the season goes on, we'll see more and more of Javonte Williams. The problem is, if you draft Melvin Gordon, you might be feeling great early in the season, and then you might have a guy on your bench who's not really doing much for you. Whereas if you draft Williams, kind of like the people who drafted Cam Akers last year or J.K. Dobbins last year, you got a guy who's not really doing anything, and you have to make that tough decision. Do you ride it out and hope he gets playing time? Do you drop him? So I could see it kind of be in that situation. That's what my gut is telling me right now. Obviously, maybe Williams comes in, and I think Williams, unlike Etienne, I think Williams is good enough to come in and perhaps win the job outright, but I don't see it happening. I think Gordon still has enough juice left to hold him off, but I do think by season's end, Williams will be the starter.
Have to agree with that. Look, we both thought Melvin Gordon was a great kind of later running back. I wouldn't say late round running back, but if you were waiting on RB1, or you just didn't want to pay a price for your RB2, he was kind of a really solid target until they drafted Javonte Williams. And so here's the thing. Right now, it's tough to really assess either one because I think right now it's going to be Gordon to start the season and Williams toward the end of the season. Like you said, I think the J.K. Dobbins comparison is a really smart one because that's pretty much what happened. And you saw it down the stretch. Dobbins was the undisputed man. He wasn't the only running back there. I guess Edwards was in the mix, but Dobbins was the guy mainly. He was scoring a touchdown every game, right? That's a run-heavy offense, obviously. But with Denver, there's going to be plenty of touches to go around because we don't really know who their quarterback is. I guess Teddy Bridgewater. I don't think they're going to be passing the ball a whole lot if they can run the ball with those two guys. So I think it's going to be Gordon early and Williams late, which makes it really aggravating for draft day because how do you prefer either one, right? You don't want to be sitting there half the season holding on to Williams, hoping that he becomes the guy in the second half. But also you don't want to draft Gordon too high if you know he's not going to be the guy when the playoffs come around. So between the two right now, I would say I still prefer Gordon because you know what? At least if he's a guy early on, you can do something with him, right? Or you can maybe do a buy low offer on Williams halfway through the season. So I actually still give the edge to Gordon until Williams proves that he will take over. Now let's go to a more complicated situation. That is San Francisco, where they have about 8,000 running backs in the mix. Trey Sermon, well, they moved up just a little bit to get him in the third round. That tells you he's a player that they coveted, but at the same time, they still have Raheem Mostert. They have Jeff Wilson Jr., who looked pretty good down the stretch last year. They also drafted Elijah Mitchell and signed Wayne Gallman for some reason. And then I think JaMychal Hasty is still there. So, I mean, how much faith do you put in Sermon based on that situation?
I put a decent amount of faith because if you look at the 49ers running backs, I mean, JaMychal Hasty is a definite cut candidate. Wayne Gallman's even a cut candidate, honestly. I mean, it's not like they shelled out big bucks to sign Wayne Gallman. You look at the other running backs that would leave him. Elijah Mitchell, what was he, like a 6th rounder, I believe? I mean, not, he's a burner, but is he really a 3-down guy? I don't think so. And then you look at Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert. These weren't, considered real NFL talent running backs until they had to do it, until they had to be in the role. These weren't guys, who were putting up great. I mean, Raheem Mostert was a special teamer. Wilson was nothing but, just basically bench fodder. And then they had to get in there and play. And obviously they played well, which I do think, helps them. But I think the path here for Sermon is pretty clear to me. His biggest hurdle is Raheem Mostert. But I could see this being like a 1-2 punch where Sermon is more the big bruiser, short yardage goal line back. And Mostert's more like the between the 20s guy. Because one thing about Sermon, he's not very fast. He's not very explosive. Whereas Raheem Mostert is, right? Raheem Mostert, I mean, it seemed like last year, every time Raheem Mostert touched the ball, he was taking it like 70 yards for a touchdown, and then he'd get like hurt. But it'd be okay because you got your 15 fantasy points, so it was okay. But I could see this being like a 1-2 punch where, like I said, third and short, goal line, whatever. They have Sermon in there, and then Mostert's in there, for the big plays to try to hit the home run. So I do think it's going to be a little bit of a headache, but at the same time, Mostert's path seems fairly clear. And if anything were to happen to Mostert, which tends to happen to Mostert, I do think Sermon would then be thrust into a 3-down role. So yeah, I do feel like, definitely Sermon will have some value in 2021, but I also feel like Mostert will as well.
Yeah, they're both draftable for sure in redraft. The question is, who do you prefer at their current ADP? Well, it depends because right now Mostert's still going above Sermon, but not by very much. And I have a feeling that, it's going to creep up, get a little bit closer, especially if Sermon does look good in training camp. So either way, we know this is going to be a committee to some extent. This is not an offense that relies on one running back. And even if it was, then we wouldn't really know which running back that would be. But it wouldn't be Mostert because said he's not a big physical guy. He's not a 3-down back. Wilson is the opposite. He's kind of a short yardage guy. He's not, a speed burner per se. And Sermon could actually fit that. He's kind of a more balanced running back. He can kind of do it all. He doesn't have that explosive breakaway speed. That's kind of the knock on him, right? He's not going to necessarily take it to the house, but he can catch the ball, right? He can pass protect. He can fit inside the tackles there. So he has what you would look for. It's just this is not the situation where it's going to happen. So I don't see anybody running away with the job in this case. So I'm preferring Sermon because, well, he's available later. And, he's not like Mostert who gets hurt all the time. So, it's inevitable. It's going to happen anyways. And then all this committee discussion will just go away because Mostert won't be there. And then the last running back we'll talk about, Michael Carter. Interesting choice here. The Jets, a lot of people thought he might go sooner. So this is a great landing spot for a running back. The problem is he's a 4th-round pick, and that's not necessarily a cinch to be the guy or even to get major touches at all. So as far as the other Jets running backs, we have several very uninspiring candidates. You got Ty Johnson. Pretty sure Frank Gore is gone, but you still have LaMichael Pirine, who didn't do a whole lot last year. Tevin Coleman was signed, former 49er. So in this case, are you going with Michael Carter or the field of running backs for the Jets?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, honestly. I think Michael Carter. Here's the thing. I mean, we both, I think, had Michael Carter as our number 4, number 5 rookie running back, but that was really only because there was a huge drop-off after the top 3. There was question marks with Michael Carter at the next level. Like, can Michael Carter be an every-down running back at the next level? I'm not sure he can, right? I don't know if he can. Like, he wasn't even an every-down running back in college, right? He had Javonte Williams there to handle, the bulk of the carries. He's more of an explosive guy in the open field that you want to get in the open field. So, I mean, saying that him versus the field, I mean, I could see it being a situation where, Tevin Coleman starts as the early down guy. Maybe LaMichael Pirine, has a bit of a role in the early down, and Michael Carter is more of a pass catcher. This is, it seems like it should be Michael Carter. Like, you should be, Michael Carter, because, again, we're talking about LaMichael Pirine, Tevin Coleman, Ty Johnson. We're not talking about world beaters here as far as the running back goes. But I just question, can Michael Carter be a 3-down back in the NFL? Will he even be a 3-down back in the NFL? Or is he going to be more like a Nyheim Hines type, which is fine, which would be fine in this offense, I think. And I think I feel like more like the latter. Like, he's going to be more of a Nyheim Hines type of player in the NFL. He'll have some PPR value because of his pass catching, but I just don't think even against this, what I would, kind of quote unquote weak running back room, I don't know if he has enough to break out and be necessarily the guy, but I do think he'll have nice value in PPR formats because of his pass catching.
So if the question is Michael Carter or any of the veteran running backs on the Jets, the answer to me is clearly Michael Carter, because none of those other guys really have any interest in fantasy. They have no value, and I wouldn't draft them anyways. So at least take a chance and see what Carter can do. And if you're asking who do I want out of the Jets running backs, the answer, Chris, you're like me. You're old enough to remember this movie. It's more of a baseball movie than a football movie, but Brewster's Millions, Richard Pryor. None of the above. That's who I'm voting for. None of the above. I don't want any part of this Jets running back room at all. I don't think Carter is going to do a whole lot. Rather than Nyheim Hines, I think he's going to be a little bit more Jordan Wilkins, meaning he'll show up a couple times, he'll make a splash play, he'll rip off a big run, maybe 1 or 2 nice games, and we'll say, oh, look what he could do if he had a bigger workload. And he'll never get the bigger workload, or it'll just, kind of fall off or get hurt. It's just going to be what could have been, but it never is. Yeah, Carter doesn't really do enough for me at this point. You know what? He ran a 4.6 almost, 4.59 and 40. The speed that we thought was there, maybe it's not there, right? So anyways, I'm kind of just avoiding Jets running backs this year at least. Maybe I'll be proven wrong, but Carter is just not doing it for me. All right, so that has been our take on the rookie running backs. What do you think? Did we miss somebody? You have a different take? Let us know. Hit us up with a comment. And of course, hit like and subscribe. We're here for you all off season long to help you win. All right, thanks for watching.